Welcome back, everyone. Lots to talk about today.
Yeah, we've got headlines from D.C. to the French Alps and pretty much everywhere in between.
Let's just jump right in.
Sounds good. We'll start with that breaking news out of Washington, D.C. An American Airlines flight went down in the Potomac.
It collided with a military helicopter before crashing into the river.
64 people were on board.
Early reports are suggesting that there might not be any survivors.
Rescue efforts are facing some tough conditions out there. Icy water, strong winds, and it's dark.
It's a really grim situation. Recovery teams are doing everything they can, and so far they've recovered 18 bodies.
President Trump has already addressed the nation.
Offered his condolences.
And yeah, pledged a full investigation into what caused this horrible accident.
Of course, this is having a huge impact on travel in the area. We're seeing flight diversions and delays.
The Metro is running extended service, trying to help those stranded passengers.
Meanwhile, on Capitol Hill, RFK Jr.'s confirmation hearing for U.S. Health Secretary is causing a stir.
Yeah, his past comments on vaccines are under a microscope right now.
He insists that he is not anti-vaccine.
But he's calling for more safety testing and defending those past statements that linked vaccines to certain health problems.
And that's creating a lot of concern among lawmakers and the public.
Definitely.
Senator Sanders was pretty vocal during the hearing.
Even brought some of those unvaccinated baby onesies that Kennedy's organization saw.
Yeah, he did. Abortion also became a key topic.
Kennedy stated his belief that every abortion is a tragedy.
That led to some pushback from Democratic senators who obviously support abortion rights.
There was also that back and forth between Kennedy and Sanders about whether health care is a right.
Kennedy's hypothetical about smokers and their access to health care
Didn't really seem to sit well with Sanders' vision of universal health care.
It just goes to show you the deep divide on this nomination.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Switching gears now to another controversial move from the Trump administration.
Oh, yeah. What's that?
He wants to build a migrant detention facility in Guantanamo Bay.
A big one.
Up to 30,000 people.
Choosing Guantanamo Bay.
Which we all know for that high-security military prison.
It's causing some serious backlash.
Cuba's not happy about it. They're accusing the U.S. of human rights violations.
I can see why they'd say that.
This all ties into that Lake and Riley Act.
The one that was recently enacted?
Right. Mandates the detention of undocumented immigrants who are arrested for certain crimes.
So the Trump administration's drawing a line in the sand here.
Absolutely. And that hard line is extending to personnel decisions.
How so?
The Pentagon has taken the extraordinary step of stripping retired General Mark Milley,
who was the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff,
of his security detail and his clearance.
Wow.
This stems from his criticisms of President Trump.
And those allegations of treason.
Relating to his calls with his Chinese counterpart.
During that presidential transition.
Right. Even though President Biden issued a preemptive pardon.
The Pentagon says they're doing this to restore accountability.
And address Milley's alleged undermining of the chain of command.
They even went so far as to remove General Milley's portrait from the Pentagon building.
It's a symbolic move, but it really makes you wonder what's really going on here. Is it really just about accountability? Or is there something else at play?
Yeah, I'm curious about that too.
Shifting focus to India now, where a terrible tragedy has happened at the Kumbh Mela festival.
One of the biggest religious gatherings in the world.
There was a massive crowd crush.
During that sacred bathing ritual.
At least 30 people have been killed.
Over 60 injured.
Families are desperately looking for their loved ones in all the chaos.
It's just awful.
The sheer size of the Kumbh Mela, millions of devotees attending it, probably played a role in this.
I would imagine.
Authorities are being criticized for mismanaging the situation and not being transparent enough.
It's definitely a wake-up call. Crowd control and safety at large-scale events, especially religious ones, are absolutely critical.
Now some potentially good news out of the Middle East. Hamas is expected to release 3 Israeli hostages.
Arbel Yehud Agamberger and Gadi Moses.
As well as 5 Thai nationals.
They were working as agricultural laborers.
This would be the 3rd release since the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas.
That's a good sign.
It really shows that those diplomatic efforts are working.
Huge relief for those hostages and their families, too. They've been through so much.
110 Palestinian prisoners will be released in exchange.
These exchanges are so important to this ceasefire agreement.
It's a step towards maybe some lasting peace.
Let's hope so.
Turning our attention to Europe now, where things in Germany are getting interesting politically.
What's going on?
There was a vote in the German parliament that's really exposed some deep divisions.
Fill me in.
A motion calling for tighter border controls.
That's a policy the far-right AfD party has been pushing.
It passed unexpectedly with support from some members of the CDU.
The party of the potential next chancellor.
Chancellor Scholz has condemned this collaboration with the far right.
Understandably so. Germany has a sensitive history when it comes to those types of alliances.
With the AfD's poll numbers going up and immigration being such a hot topic in the upcoming elections, this vote could really shake things up.
Potentially a shift towards stricter immigration policies.
Maybe. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, things are getting worse in Goma.
President Tshisekedi decided not to go to the peace talks.
Not a good sign.
Not at all. The rebel group M23 is gaining more control.
They seem to have some support from Rwanda.
The city is in bad shape.
There's a lot of violence, bodies in the streets.
And it's a humanitarian disaster.
Things have gotten so bad that foreign embassies in Kinshasa have been looted.
The UN is trying to secure Goma and get aid to the people.
But it's a very volatile situation, and the human cost just keeps climbing.
This is tragic.
Okay, time for some good news, for a change. From the world of science.
What's that?
Remember that asteroid Bennu? The samples that NASA brought back have revealed something amazing.
Let me guess, aliens.
Not quite. But they did find organic compounds that are essential for life.
What?
Things like amino acids and nucleobases. Right there in the asteroid's rocky material.
That's huge.
It lends even more support to that theory that asteroids brought the building blocks of life to Earth.
Billions of years ago.
This changes our understanding of how life began, not just on Earth, but maybe on other planets too.
It's mind-blowing.
Totally.
Yeah.
And last but not least, we go to Syria.
Where Assad is out.
And Ahmed al-Shara, the leader of that rebel offensive, has been named the transitional president.
It's the start of a whole new chapter.
They got rid of the old constitution, dissolved all the institutions of the Assad regime.
They're planning to form a new council and have elections in the future.
But rebuilding Syria after such a long and brutal war is going to be a massive undertaking.
Yeah, rebuilding their infrastructure.
Their institutions. Healing those deep societal divisions.
Syria's even asking Russia for war reparations.
Which is a pretty bold move, considering how much Russia supported Assad.
It's going to be a long and uncertain road ahead for Syria.
No doubt. They need help.
Yeah.
From within and from the international community to rebuild and create a stable and just government.
This transition is really just the very beginning. Back here in the U.S., the Trump administration's ramping up those immigration rates.
It's creating a lot of fear and uncertainty in communities.
Families are being torn apart.
Kids are being kept home from school.
People are afraid to go to the doctor.
Or even go to work.
They're afraid of being detained.
The administration says they're going after criminals.
But critics say anyone who's undocumented is vulnerable.
Mutter their history.
It's causing a lot of distrust in law enforcement.
And it's making daily life really stressful for a lot of people.
Speaking of stressful situations...
Oh no, what now?
There's been a deadly avalanche in the French Alps.
Where?
At the Le Grand Montes resort near Mont Blanc.
A skier was killed.
It's a reminder about how dangerous those winter sports can be.
Especially in areas where avalanches are common.
On a lighter note, a lot of people are having trouble with their Garmin smartwatches.
What's going on?
It seems like there's a widespread glitch.
Users all over the world are reporting problems.
They're getting that blue triangle error.
And their watches are stuck on the startup screen.
Garmin's suggesting people try resetting their devices.
But they haven't figured out a permanent fix yet.
It's a good reminder of how reliant we are on technology these days.
Especially for things like fitness tracking.
Even healthcare monitoring.
When these devices go down, it can really mess things up.
Definitely makes you think about how important reliable tech is.
Okay, let's go back to the Middle East. Those Israeli hostages are being released from Gaza.
That's great news. But it makes you wonder what goes into making those exchanges happen.
I know, it's a really delicate process, right?
Incredibly high stakes.
Lots of planning and negotiating.
Always that concern about the security situation.
I bet.
The International Committee of the Red Cross does a lot of the work.
They're the neutral party.
Making sure the hostages are safe and treated humanely.
It must be a logistical nightmare, dealing with all that damaged infrastructure.
Security checkpoints.
Potential threats.
It's not just the physical transfer either.
I was just thinking that.
You have the handover ceremonies Hamas puts on.
Okay.
And then receiving the hostages back in Israel.
providing them with medical care,
Emotional support.
getting them back to their families.
It's a lot to handle.
Those families have been through so much,
It's going to be a long road to recovery for the hostages.
physically and emotionally.
Their resilience is incredible.
Absolutely. And while we're celebrating their return, we can't forget about all the others who are still held captive.
And those whose lives have been changed forever by conflict.
Sadly, that's a reality in many parts of the world, like Ukraine.
Yeah, in Zaporizhia,
A Russian bomb killed 3 generations of a family.
a great-grandmother, a mother, and her 17-month-old son.
It's heartbreaking.
This war is so brutal.
So many innocent lives lost.
We see their faces in photos and videos.
We hear their names. We learn about their lives.
Then they're just gone.
Just like that.
It's a stark reminder of what's at stake in those negotiations.
And why there's so much division within Ukraine about making concessions to Russia.
Many Ukrainians feel like compromise is betrayal.
They want justice.
Accountability for these horrific acts.
Zaporizhia has become a focal point in this war.
It's strategically important.
Close to the front lines.
And of course, that nuclear power plant.
The suffering there is unimaginable.
From the horrors of war to the long process of rebuilding,
We're going to Gaza now.
where people are starting to return after 15 months of conflict and displacement.
The destruction there is immense.
Homes, schools, hospitals, all reduced to rubble.
Basic services are gone.
Thousands of people still don't have homes,
They're struggling to find shelter.
get access to essentials.
It's going to be a long and difficult road to recovery,
There's not enough housing.
and the resources are strained.
As people come back to these devastated areas,
The trauma of war is going to have a lasting impact.
it could lead to social and economic instability
It's a complex situation that needs immediate attention.
and a coordinated response from the global community.
Returning home is a mixed bag of emotions,
There's relief at being back.
but also uncertainty about the future.
People have lost loved ones,
Their homes and livelihoods are gone.
and there's that lingering fear that the fighting could start again,
There's even been talk about resettling Gazans in other countries.
which is a controversial idea,
Could be a solution for some.
but it raises a lot of ethical and logistical
It's a
questions.
tough situation.
The world has a responsibility to help Gaza rebuild.
But the way forward isn't clear.
We need humanitarian aid,
Political diplomacy
and we have to address the root causes of the conflict.
makes you realize, even with good news and things moving forward, there are still so many challenges in the world.
Yeah, we've covered a lot today. Geopolitical stuff, humanitarian crises.
Technology failing us.
But we also see amazing human resilience.
It's all connected.
What happens in D.C. has an impact in Gaza.
A natural disaster in France reminds us of the power of nature.
And a smartwatch glitch shows just how much we depend on technology.
It's a lot to take in. But that's the world we live in.
Complex, messy, and always changing.
It's more important than ever to stay informed. Have those tough conversations.
And try to see things from different perspectives.
We can't shy away from the difficult stuff. We need to be asking those hard questions.
Challenging assumptions.
Trying to really understand what's shaping our world.
Exactly.
It's not about knowing everything.
It's about learning and questioning.
Being part of an informed and engaged public.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Thanks for joining us today.
We hope you learned something.
Maybe thought about a few things differently.
We'll be back tomorrow with more news from around the globe.
Until then, stay curious and stay engaged.